The storm had already killed 3 probes, 2 drones, and 1 very expensive survey satellite before it noticed the humans. That was how the analysts later phrased it. Anyway, out on the frozen fringe of the Caros expanse, on a planet officially catalogued as CX 917b, the wind screamed at 800 kilometers per hour and the temperature hovered just above absolute zero. The sky was a permanent slate gray bruise, stitched with lightning that never reached the ground because the air was too thin to carry it properly. Snow didn't fall so much as detonate, exploding sideways in crystalline shrapnel that could flay exposed metal down to the molecule. No civilized species settled worlds like this. No sensible species even landed on them. Except, apparently, humans. The alien delegation huddled inside what remained of their survey shelter, layered in thermal membranes that had already failed twice. The shelter itself was a half-collapsed dome of plasteel and regret, buried under meters of drifting ice. Power flickered. Heat sputtered. Life signs blinked from yellow to orange. Commander Vethrix Kale wrapped his lower limbs around himself and tried not to shiver. His species, the Thalrex, were adapted for cold climates, but not this. Not the soul-crushing, physics-defying cold of CX 917b. "We should never have come," whispered Technician Cyril, her voice clicking weakly through the comm implant. Vethrix didn't argue. Pride had brought them here. Pride and desperation. The Galactic Concord had promised the Thalrex relief, energy grants, habitat upgrades, relocation assistance, if they could secure proof that CX 917b held a rare subatomic lattice buried beneath its ice. A lattice that could revolutionize long-term energy storage. The Concord had failed to mention that the planet actively tried to murder anything that touched it. Their ship lay half a continent away, engines frozen solid during descent. Rescue beacons screamed into the void, unanswered. The Concord's response time was measured in weeks. They had hours. The last heater died with a soft, almost apologetic whine. Cyril slumped. Another crew member stopped moving entirely. Vethrix closed his eyes, already composing the final report in his head. Mission failed. Crew lost. Planet uninhabitable. Then the storm changed. At first it was subtle, a shift in the pitch of the wind, a new vibration under the ice. Vethrix's sensory fronds twitched. "Do you hear that?" he asked. Cyril lifted her head with effort. "If that is hallucination, I approve." The sound grew louder. A deep, rhythmic thrum, like a distant heartbeat. The ground shook, not violently, but with purpose. Something massive was approaching. The Thalrex had enough time to register fear before the shelter's roof was ripped away. Metal screamed. Ice exploded outward in a cloud of razor shards. A towering silhouette loomed over them, backlit by floodlights that cut through the storm like artificial suns. For one heart-stopping moment, Vethrix thought the planet itself had risen to finish them off. Then a voice boomed from the figure. "Holy hell! There are aliens in here." The translator lagged for half a second before catching up. A human voice. Jack Moreno had been having a very bad day. The mining rig's heat exchanger had blown at dawn, forcing him to suit up and head out into weather that violated several interstellar labor laws. His job, senior ice drill maintenance technician, was supposed to involve controlled environments, not survival scenarios. But CX 917b didn't care about job descriptions. Jack trudged through the storm in a reinforced exosuit, boots magnetizing to the ice with each step. The suit's internal heaters hummed comfortably, powered by a compact fusion cell strapped to his back. Humans had learned early that redundancy wasn't optional in places like this. When his scanner pinged anomalous heat signatures beneath the ice, Jack almost ignored it. Sensors glitched all the time in the storm. Then the shapes resolved. organic, multiple, fading fast. Oh, you've got to be kidding me, Jack muttered, already diverting course. He carved through the ice with the rig's cutting arm, exposing the ruined shelter beneath. When the roof came off and the lights hit the occupants, Jack's brain short-circuited for half a second. They were not human. Tall, angular, multi-limbed, with crystalline eyes dull from hypothermia. Aliens. Alive. And dying. Training kicked in. MED I need emergency evac support. Jack shouted into his comm multiple non-human life forms, severe hypothermia, structural collapse. Yeah, I know protocol, just do it. The suit's external heaters surged as Jack dropped to one knee, extending thermal blankets that unspooled like glowing silk. He wrapped the nearest alien gently, mindful of unfamiliar anatomy. Hey, he said softly, as if tone translated across species. You're gonna be okay. I've got you. Vethrix stared up at the human in disbelief. The creature radiated heat. Impossible amounts of heat. The storm recoiled from it, steam hissing where snow touched the suit. The human's eyes, forward-facing, intense, held no fear. Only urgency. You are human? Vethrix asked, the translator struggling through numbness. Jack blinked. Yeah? You guys know about us? The Thalrex commander let out something between a laugh and a sob. We know of you. We did not expect this. Yeah, nobody expects CX. 917B, Jack replied grimly. He lifted another crew member with ease, the exosuit amplifying his strength. Let's get you out of here before the planet finishes the job. The human mining facility wasn't beautiful. It was a brutalist sprawl of steel, ice-anchored pylons, and reactor towers venting constant plumes of steam into the sky. But to the Thalrex, carried inside heated transports and wrapped in warmth for the first time in hours, it was paradise. Medical drones swarmed them, scanning, injecting, stabilizing. Human doctors, faces hidden behind visors, worked with practiced efficiency, adjusting care on the fly as alien physiology data streamed in. They're improvising, Cyril whispered from her med pod, awe creeping into her voice. They do not have our full biological profiles. Vethrix watched Jack through the transparent wall as the human argued with a medic. I don't care if it's untested, Jack snapped. Their core temperature's still dropping. Increase ambient heat and reroute my suit's reactor if you have to. That's dangerous, the medic protested. Jack shrugged. So's freezing to death. Moments later, warmth flooded the medbay, drawn directly from Jack's exosuit. Warning lights flared across his HUD. Worth it. Over the next several hours, the Thalrex stabilized. Frostbite reversed. Organs recovered. Lives were saved. When Vethrix was finally cleared to move, he approached Jack, who sat slumped on a bench, helmet off, sweat plastering dark hair to his forehead. You endangered yourself for us, Vethrix said quietly. Jack waved it off. Kinda what we do. That is not how the Concord operates. Jack snorted. Yeah, we've noticed. They shared a moment of silence, broken only by the distant howl of the storm battering the facility's shields. Why are you here? Jack asked eventually. This planet's a nightmare. We're only here because the pay's insane. Vethrix hesitated, then told him everything. The lattice, the Concord's promise, the abandonment. Jack's jaw tightened as he listened. So they sent you into a meat grinder with crossed fingers and a legal waiver, he said flatly. Figures. You speak as though this is familiar. Jack laughed without humor. Buddy, humans didn't get spaceflight by being careful. We got here by getting burned, frozen, irradiated, and learning the hard way. He stood, stretching sore muscles. Tell you what, Jack continued. We've been drilling this planet, for 5 years. If there's something valuable under the ice, we probably tripped over it already. They had. The Human Mining Collective had dismissed the subatomic lattice as weird but useless because it didn't fit human energy models. When Jack pulled up archived data and ran it through Thalrek's analytical software, the results were staggering. The lattice wasn't just rare, it was revolutionary.
Contained. Stable.
Abundant. Vethrix's fronds trembled as he stared at the projections. This could power our cities for centuries. And ours, Jack added. Cleaner than fusion, too. Negotiations followed. Short, blunt, and refreshingly honest. The humans offered shared access, joint research, and immediate extraction support. No Concord intermediaries. No political leverage. Just cooperation. When the storm finally eased enough for ships to land, a human rescue vessel escorted the Thalrex back to orbit. Engines warmed, hulls reinforced with human tech. Before departure, Vethrix sought Jack one last time. "My people will remember this," the commander said. "You saved us when the galaxy would not." Jack scratched his chin, embarrassed. "We just didn't want you dying on our watch." "That," Vethrix replied, "may be the difference between humanity and the rest of us." The aftermath rippled across the stars. The Concord was furious. Accusations flew.
Committees convened.
None of it mattered. The Thalrex publicly credited humanity with their survival and unveiled the lattice technology, co-developed with human engineers. Energy markets shifted overnight. Entire world stabilized. And CX 917b? It gained a nickname, Hell's Freezer. A place where storms killed probes, crushed ships, and laughed at physics. A place where an advanced alien crew froze to death in the dark. Until a human found them. Years later, when asked why humans kept settling the most hostile worlds in the galaxy, Jack Moreno, now head of interspecies operations, had a simple answer. "Because someone's gotta be there when things go wrong," he said. "And we're stubborn enough to survive long enough to help." Out on Hell's Freezer, the storm raged on. But inside the steel and warmth of a human-built station, life endured. Together, the storm had already killed 3 unmanned probes before it noticed the aliens. On the frozen world designated CX 917b, the wind did not howl, it screamed. Atmospheric pressure was so low that sound shouldn't have carried at all, yet the planet seemed to cheat physics out of spite. Ice scoured the surface in endless sideways avalanches, and temperatures plunged far below what most sentient life considered survivable. That was why the Thalrex Expeditionary Science Corps was not supposed to be there. Commander Vethrix Kale knew that now. He crouched inside the fractured remains of their landing shelter, his segmented limbs wrapped tight around his core as frost crept along his exosuit seams. Emergency heaters flickered weakly, their power reserves long past depletion projections. The air smelled faintly metallic, coolant crystallizing. Around him, his people were dying. The Thalrex were a proud species, adapted to cold worlds, but CX 917b was something else entirely. This was not a planet. It was an execution chamber masquerading as a rock. "We have lost external comms," whispered Technician Cyril, her voice barely audible through the static. "The beacon is no longer transmitting." Vethrix closed his eyes. The Galactic Concord had promised them salvation, resources, energy credits, protection, if they could confirm rumors of a subatomic lattice beneath the planet's ice. The lattice was theoretical, dismissed by most species as impossible. But if real, it would revolutionize energy storage across the galaxy. The Thalrex needed that leverage. Their home system was dying. So the Concord sent them here. Unprepared, under-equipped, disposable. The shelter groaned as another blast of wind slammed into it. A support strut snapped with a sharp crack. One of the junior scientists stopped moving entirely. Vethrix felt the cold creeping inward, past armor, past skin, toward thought itself. "We will be remembered," he said quietly, more hope than belief. Then the ground began to shake. At first, Vethrix assumed it was another tectonic convulsion. CX 917b had plenty of those. But this vibration was rhythmic, heavy, purposeful. Something was moving toward them. The storm outside shifted, momentarily disrupted by a rising wall of heat. Snow hissed as it sublimated instantly into vapor. A shadow loomed above the shelter. And then the roof was torn away. Light flooded in, brilliant, artificial, painful. Ice shattered outward as a massive mechanical arm ripped through the debris with shocking precision. A towering figure stood over them, encased in thick, angular armor, lights blazing from its shoulders and chest. For a single, terrifying moment, Vethrix believed a native predator had finally come to finish them. Then the figure spoke. "Jesus Christ, there are people down here." The translator lagged, then resolved the words. People. A human voice. Jack Moreno had not planned on discovering aliens that morning. He was a senior maintenance technician for Outpost Halcyon, one of humanity's deep-freeze mining installations. CX 917b paid well because it tried very hard to kill you, and Jack had long since learned that the universe rarely let you collect hazard pay without earning it. When his seismic scanner flagged faint heat signatures beneath the ice, Jack assumed equipment failure. Then the shapes resolved. Organic. Fragile. Fading. "Oh, hell no," Jack muttered, already rerouting power to his exosuit's heaters. The storm battered him as he moved, but the suit's fusion core purred steadily against his back. Humans didn't colonize worlds like this by accident. They did it by over-engineering everything and assuming the worst. Jack plunged the rig's cutting arm into the ice, carving a controlled breach. When the shelter beneath was exposed, he didn't hesitate. "MED Bay, prep emergency intake," he barked into his calm, non-human life forms. "Severe hypothermia." He dropped into the wreckage, heat radiating from his suit in waves. The nearest alien recoiled weakly, crystalline eyes wide with shock. "It's okay," Jack said instinctively, though he had no idea if tone translated. "You're safe. I've got you." He wrapped them in thermal blankets, lifting bodies with careful strength. They were lighter than they looked. Too light. Too close to dead. Vethrix stared up at the human, stunned. The creature should not have been able to function in this environment. Yet it moved with calm efficiency, surrounded by warmth so intense the storm recoiled from it. "You are human," Vethrix said. Jack blinked. Yeah." The Thalrex commander let out a trembling breath. "Then we live." Outpost Halcyon was an ugly place. Steel pylons drilled deep into the ice, reactor towers venting constant plumes of steam, habitation blocks welded together like a defiant scar against the planet. But to the Thalrex, carried inside heated transports and surrounded by warmth, it was nothing short of miraculous. Human medics swarmed the arrivals, scanners recalibrating on the fly as alien biology streamed across displays. "They are improvising," Cyril murmured from her recovery pod. "They do not have our full medical profiles." "They are adapting," Vethrix replied. Jack stood off to the side, helmet tucked under his arm, arguing with the doctor. "I don't care if the system flags it," Jack said. "Their core temps are still dropping. Pull heat from my suit if you have to." "That could shut you down," the medic snapped. Jack shrugged. "Better me than them." Moments later, warmth surged through the med bay as Jack's exosuit diverted reactor output. Warning lights flared across his HUD. Worth it. Hours passed. Then days. Against every projection, the Thalrex survived. When Vethrix was finally cleared to walk, he approached Jack, who looked exhausted but satisfied. "You risked yourself for us," Vethrix said. Jack waved it off. "Didn't feel right leaving you out there." "That is not how the Galactic Concord operates." Jack snorted.
"Yeah.
"We've noticed." Vethrix hesitated, then spoke. "We were sent here to die. If we succeeded, the Concord would profit. If we failed, they would forget us." Jack's jaw tightened. "Figures," he said quietly. "Humans ran into the same thing back when we were the new kids." When Jack pulled up archived geological scans, the truth became impossible to ignore. The humans had already discovered the lattice years ago. They had dismissed it as an anomaly, interesting but useless within human energy frameworks. When Thalrex scientists overlaid their own models, the results were staggering. This could save our civilization," Cyril whispered. "And change ours," Jack added. "Cleaner than fusion.
Stable.
Scalable." No lawyers arrived. No Concord envoys interfered. The humans simply shared the data. Joint extraction teams formed. Human machinery, Thalrex theory. Together, they achieved in months what the Concord had failed to do in decades. When Thalrex ships finally arrived to evacuate the survivors, they did not come alone. Human escorts flanked them, engines burning hot through the storm. Before departure, Vethrix stood beside Jack on the observation deck, watching the planet churn below. "My people will remember this," Vethrix said. "You saved us when the galaxy chose convenience over conscience." Jack scratched the back of his neck. "We just didn't want you freezing to death." "That," Vethrix replied, "may be the defining trait of your species." The repercussions were seismic. The Thalrex publicly withdrew from the Galactic Concord, citing irreconcilable ethical differences. They unveiled the lattice technology, openly, freely, co-developed with humanity. Energy scarcity vanished almost overnight. Worlds stabilized. Systems recovered. The Concord's outrage echoed through bureaucratic halls, but no one listened. Because humanity had earned something far more powerful than political favor.
Trust.
CX 917 gained a nickname across the stars. Hell's Freezer. A planet that killed machines and humbled empires. A place where aliens went to die. Until a human found them. Years later, when asked why humans insisted on settling the most hostile worlds in the galaxy, Jack Moreno, now director of interspecies operations, answered simply, "Because someone has to be there when things go wrong," he said. "And we're stubborn enough to survive long enough to help." Out on Hell's Freezer, the storm never stopped. But inside the steel and warmth of a human-built station, life endured. Not because the planet allowed it, but because humans refused to give up on anyone left in the cold.